Brett Allen here once again. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. We're chatting with Mariana Klaveno. We have so many projects to talk about today. I'm not even sure where to start, but we'll start with Superman and Lois because this is big. Playing Lara Lor-Van. Of course, True Blood is a big one for you in your filmography. Devious Maids is another one. Dexter. I mean, the list goes on and on. So thank you for your time. I'm excited to talk to you and just get to know you better and talk about this really great career that you've had. Thanks for your time today. I appreciate it.
Oh, I really appreciate that, Brett. Thank you.
Well, before I start, yeah, absolutely. So you are not the first to have been a part of Devious Mates who is now on Superman and Lois. Wole has been on Divida. I'm totally butchering her name. She was on. I mean, it's crazy to just think about this world that you're a part of, because to have done that and not to do this and to perhaps maybe share scenes at some point with some of these people, it's crazy, but it shows you. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. Just as big of a pond that you're in as an actor and storyteller, it's also very small because like you cross paths.
It's my favorite thing about being a a long in the tooth actor at this point. I've been here, 20 some years. But that is my favorite thing, is to show up on set and see people from the crew that I've worked with before, other actors that I've worked with before. And it makes you feel like, oh, I really am part of this community. I'm part of this, moving organism. Yeah, it gives you a kind of, I don't want to say validation, but a feeling of belonging that this business so often takes away from you.
Sure.
And so that is one of my favorite things. So it was so great to see Wole and Adam Rayner. I had actually worked with previously as well. We played brothers and sisters on an episode of a very short-lived J.J. Abrams show. But so we were making all kinds of jokes about we were brothers and sisters, and now we're mother and son, and next time we'll be, who knows?
Yeah.
So that is one of my favorite things, is to keep running into people.
Yeah, Wole was great. We had him on a few weeks ago. And it's just interesting, again, as I wrap that thought, just to think about like as big of a, I've heard it described as like a vagabond circus, just these people that go from place to place, town to town, playing, these characters. Shaman, is the derivative of an acting, is like storytelling and really just like being part of, as you said so well, a living organism. Is it fun? Like when you run in, did you know that? Well, you obviously did because you'd probably been watching when you got this part, but do you like reach out to these people and say, hey, I'm coming on, I'm going to be a reoccurring actor on this show? Or do you just kind of show up and surprise Wole and go, hey?
Yeah, I don't think I had. So Wole and I never worked together on Devious Maids. We interacted before, obviously.
Yeah.
Just for cast things and table reads and stuff like that. But we didn't have any scenes together. So right. I don't even think maybe I had an email or something, but I didn't. I was just like, oh, that'll be great when I, see him. And he didn't recognize me off the bat, which was fun because, in the makeup trailer, you show up, hair is all crazy. And so that was really nice. We had a nice sort of reconnection there. And Adam, I did know, but I didn't have his contact information either. And so that was really funny. The second he saw me, he was like, huh, huh, huh. And then we had that great reconnection as well. But you're so right. It is a giant pond and also a very small world. Like it does tend to happen over and over again, that you will keep kind of bumping into people. And I don't know, the vagabond aspect of it is very exciting. I found it far more appealing when I was younger. Now that I'm older, I'm like,
yeah, no, I'm sure.
Be settled. I don't want to have to pack up and move. But it is, you're right. It's traditionally the sort of lifestyle of the storyteller.
It is, yeah. Jake Busey said that to us a few years ago. We had him on during the pandemic, and he was like, it's just this world that's so different. Well, this is a very cool character that you get to play. Obviously, we know who this is. And to be a part of this bigger picture of a story, although we have the Superman and Lois and all of that, but it's really a story about family and relationships. And of course, you're playing a very iconic character. How did you get the part? Obviously, you probably got an email and an audition. I guess a better question would be is what interested you in it and made you say yes to it and go, I think this is something I want to do.
Yeah, I did get an audition, and it was, COVID times, so it was a self-tape, as they all are now, pretty much. And they were like the
Yeah.
fake characters. So I actually had no idea who this
Okay.
was. I mean, if I was well versed in the DC world, I probably could have put two and two together,
Yeah.
but I am not. I had to kind of beef up once I realized what was going on. Um, but I didn't. And I think some of the sides were for the villain whose name is escaping me, Ali Alston. Um,
Yes.
they were some of her lines, actually. I
Okay.
think it was some weird, like, sort of combo of Lara's lines and her. And so I sort of thought, like, oh, this must be for some sort of villain. And I usually play villains. So I just sort of assumed, like,
Yeah,
oh,
you've played a few good ones. We'll get into that.
I've played a lot of it. So I just sort of assumed, like, oh, maybe this is some, like, big villain for this show. And then I was pleasantly surprised when I got cast and it was revealed that no, it's to play Lara Lor-Van. Like, you are part of the canon, you're Superman's mother. And that was just so fun to me. It was sort of refreshing to play somebody that's not, I mean, don't get me wrong, the villains are criminally fun to play, but I don't know. I've never played something like her in a way, and it was nice to not have, I don't know, what am I trying to say? The lifespan of a villain is sort of, the arc of a villain is sort of predictable, and
Right.
it was nice to sort of step away from that and be like, oh, I can be this sort of constant source of information and support and hologram light throughout the show. It's like a different sort of role for me.
Yeah, as opposed to Lorena in True Blood or your character on Dexter, who was just, oh my God. Yeah, so I imagine it probably feels good to like shed that skin, so to speak, as an actor and do something fun and different. And now you are part of this world, and the possibilities with this show, I would imagine, are pretty unlimited because, obviously the way your character is portrayed and we see her, it can either be flashback or a current moment, or it could be hologram. However, they decide, the writers, to put this out and get it going. Fingers crossed that whole thing ends soon. So
Yeah.
thank goodness a lot of this was already written and shot, so we get to finish it, but not so much for other shows. But I digress. This is crazy. I'm just going through your filmography, and again, this show is so important to you and to your career because you said long in the tooth, which is very true. I mean, you've been doing this for so long and had so many great parts, and some of them obviously longer than others, but all fun and important nonetheless, I think. Now, you start out where and how, what interested you in becoming an actor? Where did that process begin?
So I grew up on a farm in a very rural area of Eastern Washington State. I have
Okay.
no connection to Hollywood or acting or anything, no one in my family. And I don't know. It just sort of was something that I always felt like I wanted to do. And from the time I can remember, I would be running around in the back fields, coming up with stories and playing them out. And so it was kind of like this, lovely, cute little idyllic, dreamy girl slash Laura Ingalls Wilder, running around in the pastures pretending she was a princess somewhere or whatever. Um, and it just never really went away. Like, I just always sort of felt like, oddly, this is something I need to do. And I'm very fortunate that my parents were supportive. I'm the youngest of four, so maybe they felt like, well, the fourth can be a dud. Go ahead and try to be an
Yeah, we've
actor.
had three others that have been very
Yeah,
successful. So
you're
if
all
this
right.
one wants to go out and chase her dreams in Hollywood, we're good. We'll let
That's
her,
exactly right.
we'll support her in her journey.
We'll support her, and God love them. I mean, I was a theater major in college, so they truly did.
Oh, even better. I mean, that's like It doesn't
Yeah.
get any better than that.
It's
I've
a
heard that
worthless,
story. Yeah.
it's a worthless piece of paper, that degree.
I know. I have a minor in theater arts, and I'm just like, I can improv and have fun. I do remember that.
Yeah.
So it does work a little bit for this, but I get it. It's like I say this every time in every conversation because it's true. It's like your world is so different than like what anybody could ever imagine or dream of. It's like the most obscure thing, and even the smallest percentage of percentages make it and even get to where you're at as a working actor and has continued to work throughout your career and live a good life as far as like continuing working, right? Instead of
Yeah.
just maybe doing it and maybe stopping or continuing whatever your life brings, but you're still doing it and have that relevancy in the world. Which again, as we said at the beginning, when you run into these other people like Wole or whomever and you talk to them, it is validating because it just shows you like hard work pays off, right? Because that's
Yeah.
what, and a lot of people are talented and that's part of it, but then it's the other business side of it, connecting and just pushing forward. Was there anybody throughout the journey that you've had that really spoke into your life and encouraged you and kept you going? I mean, obviously your parents, it sounds like, played a massive part in encouraging you to keep going instead of calling it quits, which you probably easily could have after any of these projects because tomorrow is never promised as an actor. It just isn't.
It is not. It is not. I would say my parents and my siblings. I'm very close to my family, and and I've had wonderful friends along the way, and everyone's been very encouraging. I've been very fortunate for the people that I've met along the way in this business, and I found out early on that the old adage of it's all about who you know kind of made me cringe in the beginning because I thought, I moved down here in my Honda Civic from fresh out of college and I didn't know anyone. So that sort
Right.
of felt bad, like, oh, I don't know anybody. But it is actually, it's true. And it doesn't have to mean what you think it means, whereas you have to have all these fancy connections because
Right.
that's not necessarily the connections that are going to actually
No.
um, root you down and sow the seeds that will then you can cultivate along the way. It truly is about making relationships with people, and I have found really smart, artistic, creative people along the way that have always been encouraging. But I will say, I think something that I can attribute to hanging in here through the ups and downs is actually my upbringing. I mean, I being raised on a farm, sadly nowadays, is a very rare thing, a small family farm, but where it didn't give me any, inside connections and fancy hookups in the business, it did give me a work ethic and a discipline and a sense of my feet being rooted on the ground. And that has been just invaluable along this journey, I feel like. I mean, am I down in the dumps all the time? Yeah, I am. But I think the resilience that I've needed and all of us need, it really does come from that, of coming of
Sure.
having that really sort of strength, of knowing who I am and where I come from, as cliche as that sounds, finding strength in that and that's in that solidity.
No, I think that's great. I mean, we are byproducts of our parents, good or bad. I'm a father. My son will become a byproduct of me. And so I think that's good. I grew up in Kansas, Midwest. So I get like that mentality. And then you just all of a sudden fly from the nest and you wind up in the middle of Los Angeles. And it's very true. And I want to make this as a point is like you can have all these high powered connections, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything of anything, because that show that was out, for 9 seasons, Entourage, that was sort of a snapshot of what LA life was really like. And I use that as an example, like just because you know somebody big, that doesn't mean squat. Even doing this, like I've made connections and I thought, this is great. We're going to get so and so. And it's like, nope, nope, nope. It's the other relationships and the being kind, I think, is what allows you to be successful by that measure.
Yes, I would agree. 1000%. It's sort of the long game,
Yeah.
it takes longer, but it's in my opinion, in my humble opinion, sort of the better way, because I've never been good at the sort of schmoozing and going to parties and networking in that sense.
Yeah.
That's just not, I'm terrible at social media. Like I haven't even been on in a while. Like all of that stuff I'm terrible at. And I don't say that as a point of pride. Like that is people who are good at that. And I have a lot of friends who are like, they can generate a lot of work from that. That's not ever been my strength. And I've sort of just come to accept that and be like, you know what? I just kind of have to plod along doing what I do and hoping that the hard work kind of pays off, and the kindness and the professionalism, along the way, hopefully pays
Oh,
off.
I think so. I mean, obviously, going back to Superman and Lois, getting on that show is a big earmark for your career. I mean, I think all of them are capstones to your success, but I want to draw into a couple. IMDb, I know sometimes puts things out of order, so please correct me if I'm wrong. So you do a few things. You do the Dexter and you do Criminal Minds, Undercovers, but True Blood and Stalker are big hits for you. Those are, had you been able to quit a 9 to 5 at that point before, or were those two shows that allowed you to potentially do that, where a lot of actors, if they can, make the break and go, okay, I'm just putting all of my eggs in one basket, literally, as an actor?
Yes, I thought about this very, very hard when I was in that position. I was a hostess at a restaurant for many, many years. And when I booked True Blood, well, first I just booked it as a guest star.
Yeah.
And then they came back with season 2, offering me to be a series regular, which was like, beyond my wildest dreams. Because they didn't know if they were ever going to see that character again. And then they decided, no, we like her, let's bring her back. And I still didn't want to quit my job because I was still so paranoid
Yeah,
about,
I can imagine. It's a big deal.
it's a big deal. And you see a lot of people, like I saw other actors at the restaurant get a pilot and quit, and then 6 months later have to come back. And I just never wanted that. I never wanted that experience. And luckily my managers were really cool, and they let me just like keep a Saturday shift forever. And so I was filming True Blood while still going to my Saturday shift. And then it wasn't until, I think I quit right before it started airing, right before season 2 started airing, because then that kind of would have been weird. But and then luckily I haven't had to ever go back. But it was a big deal for me. It was a big deal to sort of clip those to cut the training wheels off, so to speak.
Yeah, I've heard stories too where some have chosen to do that, and they've had managers and agents go, you can quit, you'll be fine, just and get a nice little spot in West Hollywood, kind of like your background now. I don't know where you're at, you don't have to say, but just something easy and light, and
Mm-hmm.
just take it easy and don't go crazy, and you will be okay. You know what I'm saying? But they've still kept jobs. One was a receptionist at a day spa, and while she was filming a television show, she would have clients come in and go, I think I
Wait a
know
second.
you. But it's really not, it can often sometimes be perceived as sort of a faux pas for actors, but really, like, what people don't get is like, in this business, you don't get paid like every 2 weeks or every week.
No.
That's not how it works, unless you're the select of the select, where you're getting a bajillion dollars up front for a project, and then you have to hope that it does well at the box office. So I think, it's okay to have to do that if you need to,
Oh,
and it's
absolutely.
not abnormal. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's perfectly normal. And somebody said one time in a conversation, like, when you make that journey to LA, and let's say you get on a show, or you're trying to get on a show, nobody's going to tell you how to do it, but you see people around you that aren't working, that have money and are doing things, and you're like trying to figure out how are they doing that. But no one, there's not a class that you can take to go how to survive in Hollywood while you're trying to make it, so to speak. And
No.
the rent still due every month, like the car payments still due. And I don't care if you're a series regular on, Young Sheldon, you still have to pay the bills, because some of those parts are great. We see you a lot, but they probably don't pay squat depending on where you're at in your career.
That's
So
very true. And to be clear, like there's no shame in needing to go back to work.
no,
I don't mean I don't mean to
no, I
categorize
didn't think that at all. I think I'm just
at
saying I
all.
agree with you in the fact that it's okay. Like,
Absolutely. I actually, sometimes have wished that I had other marketable skills that I could do. I've kind of, been at the drawing board with my husband, like, what's bad and much, but yeah, so I there's absolutely no shame. I think it's very I think it's logical. I think it's smart. I think it's a good strategy, so you take the pressure off yourself to need those jobs so much. I mean, the less desperate you can feel when you're auditioning is always preferable.
yeah. So now that we're in a different age, I would say, as far as this business goes in regards to auditioning, I mean, self taping has always been a thing, but I think the pandemic really launched that forward even more successful. Do you have a preference either way? Do you like doing self tapes because you have a chance to correct and do it a few times versus just going into a room cold? Or do you like the energy in a room where there's 50 of you, your type in the room, and a couple off the walls that aren't? I mean, what is your energy like? What do you vibrate with when it comes to auditioning?
It's a great question, and I'm not going to give you a great answer because it's both. I
Okay.
like aspects of the self tape, and I really miss aspects of going in person. What I love about self taping are the things that you mentioned. You're able to do it again. You're able to control. There's more control over what you're putting out, which is nice. I also like the control of the schedule of it, even though they act a lot of times like it's a selfie, like it takes 5 minutes to just to churn those out. Like it does not. Like it takes. We're still working on it and memorizing and putting the work in, etc. But I have a child now, and so it's sort of hard to be in Santa Monica at 4 o'clock for a meeting, and you don't know how long that's going to take when you got a kid. So it's nice
Right.
to be able to just like knock it out on your time. That all is great, sort of lifestyle wise. What I really miss is, well, sort of two major things. One is not getting any feedback, not having any questions answered. Um, you kind of just have to make a guess, trust your instincts, go with your gut, and send that off. And that's just not the case when you're in person. They'll adjust you. It's very rare that you just do it once and not,
Right.
casting usually has notes. No, this is, they're really looking for this. Like, no, not so much that. Like, I like that, but let's do this. And you're able to show them how well you can be directed. You can sort of flex your muscles a little bit in that way and show them your range. You can, basically just showcase a little bit more of your skill set. And in a self tape, you just can't do that. It's just you send them what's in. The second thing is that you don't have that sense of community that we were talking about before.
Yeah.
As much as it's not pleasant to sit in a room full of yous, 50 other yous, and a few oddballs, there is something to going to casting offices, to seeing other actors, to seeing a casting director, to signing in, to going on a studio lot that makes you feel like I am in this business. Like this is a part of my job. Like this is
Yeah.
what I'm doing today. That's part of my job. When you're just self-taping, you're completely isolated. You're completely shut off. You don't talk to anyone. It's just an email that you get. And I think it just feels like it just feels like you're sending it off into the ether, and who knows if anyone even sees it. I mean, I think they do, but do you know what I mean? Like there's
I
just
do.
no connection to anyone, and that's just how it feels anyway. And I think that is a real loss, especially for actors that are maybe starting out in this business
Oh yeah, for
that have
sure.
never known the opposite, and to miss out on that feeling that you are a part of this thing, this moving organism, this world. I don't know how you feel that when you're just sending off self tapes constantly. So that's a little sad, I think, about it.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree, especially somebody new who, as you mentioned, just got started maybe just right before the pandemic, or, is like taking that leap from wherever they're at to move to LA to try and really pursue their dreams and success as an actor and as a storyteller. It has to be hard. But also, as you said, you're a parent. and presumably your spouse works, and you've got to figure out, how am I going to get to West Hollywood at 3 for an
Yes.
audition? And then you show up and you have to find parking,
Yep.
and
They're running late. You have to
running
wait 45
late.
minutes. Yes.
It's like we're getting notes from the director as we speak. So this all is going to change in a matter of seconds. But then you're sending a tape out into the internet world, and you don't know who's watching it or who's looking at it. It could probably work both ways. Crazy, crazy, crazy
Yeah.
times. But what success I feel you've had, again, this big project now and other things. One last question. Just looking at all the things that you've done, you've had some pretty big highlights. And obviously, as we've said at the beginning, there's never 100% certainty in the business, but you've alluded to it a little bit through our conversation. Like, is there one project that you pinpoint in your career that you made you go, okay, this is definitely something that I meant to do, whether it was a big hit, either Devious or True Blood or some of the others, or has it just all been one thing after another that just continually solidifies in your mind that you're just as happy as can be doing this, as challenging as it can be at most times?
Oh, that's a really good question. Let me see if I understand. So was there a moment, a project that I sort of felt like, this
Yeah.
is what I'm meant to be doing?
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, I feel like that sort of happened for me on stage first.
Okay.
But in terms of film and television, yeah, I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, maybe a little bit every time. Well, no, not every time. I shouldn't say that, because some experiences have not been great. And I thought, this is bad. I mean, True Blood for sure, but I feel like there were even little hints along the way before that of like, oh, okay, and surprising myself that I was showing up with big actors and kind of holding my own and not just crumbling to the floor and crying. Like I think it's those moments of like surprising yourself with letting your instincts take over and your ego kind of shut down, and realizing like, oh, this is in me and I can do it, and people are responding to it, and this feels right. Yeah, I mean, I even remember, this is going to sound so cringy, I'm sorry, but one of my first crazy things I did to get into the union was, I don't even know if this works anymore, to get the voucher system.
Okay.
My brother was a chef, and his chef who was above him, her wife was a second AD on on a Wes Craven movie, which is like, again, like the way that things sort of work. I was able to work as a stand-in for a few days on a Wes Craven movie, and it was, I'm trying to think the name of it was not a big hit. It was a werewolf movie or something.
I think I know what you're talking about. It sounds
Okay,
familiar.
I want to say Christina Ricci or somebody was in it, but anyway, doesn't matter. I was doing stand-in work, and it was the first time I'd ever been on like a big set, and standing on the mark, even though it wasn't my role and I wasn't actually acting, but standing on the mark and having the big lights turned on and the camera focused on me, there was something crazy that sort of stirred inside of me, and I felt like, this feels right. This feels right. And again, I know that sounds kind of cringy, but it was like the little girl part of me that was like, yes, somehow I knew. So I try to remind myself of those times, actually, when things feel really low and things feel really discouraging and rejection is overpowering. I kind of remind myself. So if there's anybody out there listening that feels the same way, I always say, hold on to those little moments that kind of buoy you up and remind you why you got into this in the first place, and what is it about storytelling that keeps us all coming back to it in this crazy profession and industry.
Yes. So I do have to ask, during the True Blood years, when everything was hot and heavy with that show and you're doing all these events, I can imagine a million people, when you would take pictures, would want you to pretend like you were biting them or coming after them.
They did.
That's crazy.
I don't think I actually ever did it. I sort of made that boundary for myself, that I would
Yeah.
sign things and take pictures, but I was like, you know what? I just don't really want to bite anyone or get close enough.
I'm an actress, an actor. This is
Yeah,
television.
it just felt a little bit of a violation of like, let's not actually cross that line.
That's funny. Well, congratulations on everything. Superman and Lois, we're wrapping up the season here, mid-season. Hopefully more episodes coming soon. Given the WGA strike, we stand. Support, please. Let's get this worked out. These writers
Absolutely.
would, it's because of them we get to talk to people like you and just have amazing
Absolutely.
conversations. So congratulations and thanks for your time. It was a pleasure chatting with you. I really appreciate it.
It was really fun. Thanks, Brett.
Absolutely.